right, I think we are now live for another Thursday edition of Conversations with Commodores. And I appreciate everybody who's hung in there with us the last 4 or 5 months and keep coming back, and your enthusiasm is awesome. And speaking of awesome, I'm so happy and so pleased to have tonight's guest, a recent graduate of Commodores, or Vanderbilt, former player Cody Markel has joined us this evening. We've already been having a good little chat. Good evening, Cody, and thank you for spending some time with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, and I know that you graduated this past year, and you're running the foundation that we'll get into in a few minutes. But before we get into those things, I have to address what's going on in the world right now. You're on campus or right off campus, and I know you see the players every once in a while or so forth. But what kind of mood? What are you sensing? Is it just a real anticipation for the season, but it's kind of tempered? Or tell me what you're hearing and what you're seeing.
So kind of what I'm hearing is everyone's really excited to just like get back. They don't know exactly when that get back will be. Obviously, camp was supposed to start today. Today was supposed to be the first practice, and that's clearly not happening. They pushed it 2 or 3 weeks. So, I mean, guys are ready to go, and they're really excited to play this season, whatever that looks like. It's not like they're dreading to play a full SEC schedule or anything like that. It's rearing to go. But
they're athletes; they want to compete.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they get a couple more weeks of training in, which everyone enjoys, I know. But
no one ever.
Yeah, and so, but I know they're ready to get back actually on the field with pads on. I know they've been doing a lot of walkthrough stuff, and as a lot of you know, walkthroughs can only do so much. At some point, you got to put the pads on and hit somebody. So,
well, Turner, we've got some folks rolling in. I want to make sure that we give them a little shout out here or two. One of my former teammates, John Donardi from the Chicago area. Coach Hall, Carlton Hall is with us this evening. Flavius Smith has joined us, and some others. So thank you, guys. I'm talking with Cody Markel. Cody, originally from coming out of Wisconsin, and we had many teammates from north of the Mason-Dixon, if you will, over the years. And I got to ask, when you first came down to Nashville and were starting to work out, how did that humidity treat you?
Oh, horrible. It took me probably 2 full summers to adjust. I mean, being from Madison, I hadn't spent any time in the South before I showed up in June 2016. And yeah, it hit pretty hard, the humidity. And it took me a while to get used to it. But now, like, every time I go home, I was actually home for a few months after graduation. I graduated in December, and I was so cold the entire time. It didn't matter if it was even like in the 40s in February, which is warm for there. I don't think I could ever go back.
Your blood got thin. You didn't have that.
Got very thin, very fast.
Well, did you come down for an official or unofficial recruiting visit when you were considering Vanderbilt?
So my story is actually kind of funny. So I'll just kind of walk through my high school career. So I actually tore my ACL my sophomore year of high school, and that injury actually lasted almost a little bit over a year. So I didn't really play my junior year either. Wow. So I really only had 1 year of football, like real football, under my belt senior year, and it wasn't until after the season that I really started getting recruited by anyone. So my last high school game, I broke my finger, was in the emergency room the whole night, and then I had plans that Saturday to actually fly down to Nashville to visit Vanderbilt for school, not for football. And it was homecoming against Missouri. And my dad and I just ended up saying, hey, let's just go to the football game. I had like my hand in the cast. I was up like this the whole time, keeping it above my heart. So the swelling would go down. But yeah, I got back to Wisconsin, and a few days later, Coach Ludwig, who was previously at the University of Wisconsin, offensive coordinator, came down to Vanderbilt a couple seasons before that. He reached out to me and he said, I heard you're at the game on Saturday, would you be interested in visiting again for football? I said, hell yeah, I would be. So I came back down a couple weeks later for the Texas A&M game, then visited a few other schools, Northwestern, and then a few Ivy League schools. But Vanderbilt was far and away where I wanted to be. It was almost where I wanted to be just for academics. So, I mean, having the opportunity to play football as well was awesome. That's the only way to put it.
An added bonus and one of the cherries on the top is scoring against that dreaded team out of Knoxville later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what you reported in the fall of 16.
Yep.
And as we all were assigned roommates. Where were they housing you guys at that time?
So in the summer, we were in Towers. I was in Towers East, for the tower furthest east. I think it's 1 or 4, one of the two. I was there, and yeah, I had a bunch of football players on my floor, and those are guys I'm still close with today. And then we used to do this thing during camp where we'd go from Towers to Blakemore during camp and then move into our freshman housing. And we only did that my freshman year. And sophomore year, we just started moving right into our fall housing, which was infinitely better, especially because sophomore, junior, and senior year, I was on Highland Quad, which is like a 4-minute walk. But yeah, so we moved from Towers to Blakemore, and then I was in Sutherland House my freshman year.
And so your freshman year, were you assigned a roommate or roommates?
Yes. Yeah.
Who were your roommates at that time?
My roommate was David Floyd, who went to Lipscomb Academy, and yeah, he played 3 years on the team. He graduated in 3 years. So.
Okay. Well, when you came in with your freshman class, did you know any of the other signees, or did you meet them when you got to campus?
I didn't know anyone. We all had like a group chat coming in, but I was a pretty late commit. So a lot of the guys already knew each other just from previous visits and stuff like that. So I really didn't know anyone coming in, and especially being from that far north, that is not common. I think I was probably the only SEC player from Wisconsin on any team. I know the punter from Ole Miss is from Minnesota, and he's a good friend of mine, but I can't think of anyone up from that far north who's not playing in the Big Ten. So I really didn't know anyone. I really didn't know what to expect because I mean, everyone was from Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi.
Oh, and certainly, Cody, they had to have given you a hard time about your accent.
Yeah, and my accent has gotten significantly less in the 4 years I've been here. It used to be really Midwestern when I got here freshman year, so I never heard the end of it from pretty much our whole freshman class right when I stepped foot on campus.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and frankly, that was, believe it or not, that was a way of welcoming you in as a teammate.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, because they could have, it's easy to ignore people that you don't care about. So
yeah.
You came in as a tight end. Did you start out as a tight end? Was there freshman competition with you?
So I finished my senior year at about 200 pounds, which does not bode well for a tight end in the SEC. And by the time I got here in June, I was 235. So I put on a lot of weight in senior year of high school, and so I was much more prepared than I think they expected me to be, and I expected me to be to kind of play, just because I was at that weight, and I put on another probably 10, 15 pounds over my freshman year, and kind of stayed around that 245, 250 range the rest of my career. But yeah, I was a tight end from the jump, and the only other tight end who came in, who was designated as a tight end at the time, was Turner. So we came in together, and then Braden Kopp moved to tight end, I think, sophomore year. So we had 3 in our class in the end.
Gotcha. And talk about your first experiences getting to meet Turner a little bit and hanging out, because I know when you're in the same class and you play the same position, you're not necessarily going to be hanging out together and learning together.
For sure. And we spent a lot of time together that first season, whether that was we were both played scout team and we were the 2 tight ends for whatever team we were playing. but that summer I think is when, as a lot of people who played know, that first like freshman summer is when you really get tight with a lot of the other freshmen around you, just because it's your first time away from home for an extended period and you're like kind of on your own for the first time. So you like kind of grab onto each other. So I think one of the first memories I have with him, and this was with like Deuce Wallace, Drew Birchmeyer, Cameron Tidd, who we're all super close friends today. We actually befriended some baseball players, and like probably two or three times a week, we'd go hit in the batting cages with them, and then sneak into Memorial and just play around in the gym and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And
who are the freshman baseball players that you're talking about? And
like Drake Fellows, Harrison Ray, and JJ Boulet, I think and Ty Duvall were the 4 freshman baseball players who came in that class. So
I'll be calling you when I'm ready to go watch them play. You can get us tickets.
Yeah.
Now, side note, I follow the baseball program very closely and have enjoyed years of their success, like we all have. But that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
So you're spending a lot of time with a core group of guys in your class. Who were the first breakout guys to get some playing time during the season of 16, your freshman year?
So there are 2 that really stand out from our class, and that was Kalijah Lipscomb. Basically from day 1 of camp was just like who is this kid? Like he was just, and I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but he's not a talker. So like he's a very quiet, go about your business kind of guy. And he just came out of nowhere and like was dominating people in camp. And obviously that showed throughout his whole career.
Sure.
And then Bailey McElwain, who was a fullback, who I think he had to medically retire after 1 year, unfortunately, but he was a late commit. He was originally committed to Stanford, I believe, and he like committed 2 weeks before camp and showed up like a week into camp and was starting by the end of his first week. And I was like, oh my, like this kid is not afraid of anything. And so those 2 really stand out. And obviously Juwan Williams is in our class too on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I'm an offensive guy, so like I'll always give credit to them. You know,
Well, Cody, I know you come from an athletic family. Both your parents played in the collegiate level, different sports.
Mm-hmm.
How, obviously academics were very important. If you came down on an academic visit with your dad and then were contacted by the coach to come back down for football, but did you ever, I guess my question is, was it ever, as you were growing up, did you ever feel any pressure that you had to excel in sports or to play on the next level?
Yes. So my dad played football at UC Davis and my mom played soccer at Stanford. And I wouldn't say they pressured me. It was more of I put that pressure on myself because I was like, okay, both my parents played Division I sports. So that is kind of something I have to do. And I was originally a quarterback. And if you've seen me throw now, you'd never believe that in a million years. But I put a lot of, especially like in middle school and like the freshman year of high school, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I would actually say like getting hurt my sophomore year was definitely a blessing in disguise because that really took a lot of pressure off me because I could take a step back for the first time in my life. I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete, so I played football, basketball, and tennis. So I was going all the time, year round.
Wait. Tennis in Wisconsin? How?
Oh yeah.
Indoor?
Oh yeah. For a lot of times, for like we get to play outdoors 4 months a year. It's kind of nice, but yeah.
Did the broken finger affect your ability to pass?
No, I had switched way before that. I switched like when I was probably actually going into my sophomore year. I switched because I was like I was okay, but I wasn't great at quarterback. And there was another quarterback in our class who he was better than me. So I moved to wide receiver initially, and then got hurt at receiver. And then when I came back, I was tight end. So.
Gotcha. Well, I hear you about being self-driven and with your parents setting the bar pretty high, and you had expectations for yourself.
definitely.
Absolutely. But before we keep going, Cody, we've got a bunch of Commodores who've rolled in. I want to give them some shout outs. OJ Fleming, June Jakes, Coach Gene Wyndham. Mrs. Cockrell is here. So thank you for joining us, everybody. It's good that everybody's come in and are coming in. We're talking with Cody Markel, and we're talking about his ability to play indoor tennis in Wisconsin 8 months a year. No, Cody, let's go back to your freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And most guys, regardless if you're in a big city or a small city, growing up, you're a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
But when you get into the SEC, you're now, regardless of who you are, you're a small fish in a huge pond. How quickly did it take for you to realize, hey, everybody's good here? Everybody runs and can throw and lift. What was that experience, that transition like for you?
So it was kind of the opposite of what you'd expect it to be. So I came in, I was really nervous. I mean, I had played Wisconsin high school football, which is, I don't want to say it's a joke, but it's nothing compared to like Georgia high school football or Tennessee high school football or Texas high school football. It's just, there's not as many athletes. So I came in, I was like, oh boy, am I going to be able to compete with these guys? Like, am I going to be big enough, strong enough, fast enough to compete? And kind of like a few days into camp, I was like, okay, I can compete. Like this, I mean, yes, everyone is good, and it's kind of what I expected. It's nothing that I like can't handle. And I actually I would say I owe that mindset a lot to Sean Dowling, who was the senior tight end at the time in 2016. I think he graduated in 2016. He's now in the Marines, but he was probably my biggest mentor, especially freshman year. And he really hammered home the point like that there's like nothing to be afraid of and nothing to fear. After my first day of practice, he's like, I see it in you. Like, there's no reason to doubt yourself. So going from that point forward, like I tried to never doubt myself. And I think I did that relatively successfully. I mean, I'm definitely not the fastest or the strongest or the biggest guy, but so starting freshman year, I watched a lot of tape, and any coach that you ask will say that that's kind of where I held the advantage, as I was trying to be the smartest player on the field. And so I think that having that upper hand and knowing what both my teammates and opponents were trying to do and what their techniques were, that kind of made up for a lot of athletic shortfalls that I may have had. And I think that instilled a lot of confidence in me pretty much from the jump.
I was just getting ready to say confidence is 90% of the game.
For sure.
And figuratively. And when you figure out how the game works from your position, from your perspective, everything slows down just a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm sure those first few weeks of pads practices, the game is so fast.
Yeah.
Because everybody else has been there and you're trying to catch up.
Oh yeah.
Once you gain that foothold, did you notice that things started to slow down? Not actually slow down, but your mind processing the game.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I would say our offense was relatively complicated from the tight end position. We put, especially, I'm completely new offense now, so I can't speak for it now, but especially when Coach Ludwig was here, we put a lot of pressure on the tight end position, whether we were jumping or moving or what we were doing. And I cycled through 5 different position coaches in my 4 years, but he kind of took us under his wing a little bit. He was like tight ends and quarterbacks. Like those are the 2 positions I'm really going to like hammer home with like coaching points with. And so him like giving us that like extra added, like almost football, like 101 lessons, or especially freshman year, helped a lot. And by the end of camp, I felt pretty good in the offense. I was nowhere where I needed to be like athletically, or I wasn't big enough yet, just like a lot of true freshmen are in taking that redshirt year. But I think mentally, that redshirt season was really helpful to like, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is what opponents do. Like opponents are probably not going to change defenses next year. Like this is good scouting for next year for me. And I definitely saw a huge difference between like the start of camp freshman year and then the first spring practice, like freshman year, that following spring, and just how, the game slowed down and what I was trying to do became more clear in my head. And I was like, and Coach Mason calls it the fog of war. If you don't really know 100% of what you're doing when you step on the field and you're lining up, you're going to be slow. Your reflexes aren't going to be as fast because you're thinking about what you're trying to do. So I think having that redshirt year to really learn the offense and learn my technique was extremely helpful in slowing the game down.
Oh, and I'm sure it helped to be redshirted to get adjusted academically as well as athletically. But speaking of athletically, I want you to talk a little bit about Turner. I want to talk about your competition, both as tight ends in the same class. He's from Georgia. You're from Wisconsin, about 1,500 miles away. I'm sure, and I never had the honor of knowing or meeting Turner, but I'm sure he had some Georgia drawl or dialect a little bit where you had Wisconsin. So talk about your relationship with him a little bit.
Yeah. So we're always close, close from the start. And especially I think playing scout team together freshman year was actually a lot of fun. And I know some guys dread scout team, but I think if you ask anyone on that 2016 team on our scout offense, we were a good scout offense. We were ripping apart that defense at some points, and that was a really good defense. So we were having a lot of fun, and Turner and I were always joking around, talking crap to defensive players. And so I think, we were always close off the field just because we had similar interests, and we just spent a lot of time together. But on the field, it was competitive between the two of us, obviously, because we were both trying to see playing time and earn respect from coaches, but we never let it get in the way of like how we actually thought of each other, and it was never like toxic or anything like that. So, yeah.
What were his athletic strengths and what were yours?
So he was a lot faster than me. He was a natural born runner. And he was a good route runner. I was more of an inline tight end, and we did have two tight ends in our offense, a Y and a U, and I was more of a Y and he was more of a U. In that I was more taking on like a 6 or 7 technique head on, where he was more like running routes or reaching a 9, or like we had different. I was less of an athlete, but I was more technically sound, I would say, and he was more of an athlete and could run around and catch the ball, which I could do too, just not as well.
Frankly, you did more blocking. He did more route running.
Sure. There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Well, from an academic standpoint, did you have a lot of classes with some of your teammates, or what was from your first year? Was it just general studies, or did you jump right into some specialty class?
I kind of jumped right in. And so I didn't have a lot of classes with teammates. So I was a political science major, or political science and a medicine, health, and society major. I was a double major. So like, maybe it wasn't my smartest idea, but freshman year, I was like trying to get into upper level poli-sci courses, which was a little ambitious on my part, but they were like the classes I was interested in. So I thought, why not? So here and there, I had classes with teammates, and especially when we took like the larger lectures, whether that's like Gen Chem or geology or any of those type of classes that you kind of have to take. I always had teammates in there with me, but compared to the normal person, I think I had a lot fewer classes with teammates.
Mm-hmm. I found that I didn't wear my football issued garb, clothes to class, and I didn't sit with a lot of the ball players, a lot of times on purpose, because I don't know how a lot of the faculty just didn't seem to have a real affection or care for any of the athletes.
So I was on the student athlete advisory council for 3 years, sophomore, junior, and senior year. My last 2 years, I was trying to focus on that. I started a faculty relations committee, and I was meeting with different deans and professors that I knew didn't hold athletes in that regard. But yes, that is definitely a problem that unfortunately still persists university-wide, and some professors just don't like athletes right away, no matter who they are. So yeah, I would agree with your sentiment. I definitely didn't wear like my football gear on the first couple of weeks of classes until I started to really get to know, all right, who is this professor? Do they care? And that stuff. So I definitely agree with that sentiment.
Unfortunately, Cody, I'm sure it's been going on for many decades on the campus, but it's probably nationwide as well. The academic types, a lot of people just don't care for the athletic types.
I know.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about Turner, and we're going to get into your experience and what you're doing now. And for folks who didn't know Turner, tell us a little bit about his personality and who he was on and off the field.
I mean, I think the best word to describe him would be infectious in a good way. So he was literally always smiling, laughing, joking around. And I know a lot of guys have a lot of different stories, some appropriate, some not appropriate.
Keep in mind, Mrs. Cockrell's.
Oh, she knows about all of them. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, I mean, he was just a fun guy to be around, and it was hard not to be positive when you're around him, and especially having a guy like that in the locker room is a really good thing, instead of having like an energy vampire who's always sulking no matter like what's going on and that type of thing. Having a guy who's always positive, always up, always trying to get people to laugh, trying to get people to smile. That's something that's it's rare, and it's also like it's awesome to have. And it's awesome to have someone like that as your friend, because you can always go to them when the chips are down. And that was the case until the end for him. I mean, he was always, I mean, we'd come back from, and camp days, like 16-hour days, and he'd just be sitting in our dorm, in our like dorm apartment or whatever in Morgan, and he'd just be waiting to make us laugh, like thinking of jokes all day to tell us. And I mean, that's just something that you have to admire in someone.
And that's a built-in personality trait. That's not something you acquire. That's just part of the DNA of a person, because most people are not that happy or not that energetic or willing to share a smile or a funny thing at the end of the day. Most people sulk. Most people are just, woe is me. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, let's kind of transition a little bit into your sophomore and junior years, and take us to when you and the team or teammates found out that Turner had been diagnosed.
Yeah, so it was towards the end of our sophomore year. So it was actually, he had like 3 kind of fatty lumps down his neck, and in the tight end room, we commented on them frequently, because I'm pretty sure they had like kind of always been there. But we kind of had noticed that they had started to grow over the months. So we told them basically, you got to go get that checked out. And that was like in October. So he did, and it came back that they were cancerous, which it was pretty tough, obviously. And I know that was hard for a lot of people on the team, whether that's in the tight end room or in our really close friend group. But yeah, so that was kind of the highlighted at the end of our sophomore year. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was somewhere around like the Thanksgiving or like the Tennessee game, which we won. So got to mention that.
That's right. So when did Turner take a leave from the team and from school, or did he ever?
So he never really did, which is kind of awesome. He started radiation that that following spring, I think it was the start of February, end of January. And so he was doing the training up until then. And even at the start of his radiation treatment, which is brutal, he was still trying to do like our workouts, which was crazy. So I remember I think it was 2 or 3 weeks into his like radiation regimen. And he like came to speed one morning at like 5:30 a.m. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I just thought I'd try. And so he did try, and he almost made it through the full thing, which was insane. So after that, he kind of took a step back from football. He still came around like the facilities a lot, still hanging out in the locker room. And during spring practice, he came out to practice and that type of thing. So, and then we had a big old celebration when he finished radiation in April, or I think it was April. And we basically burned, they gave him his like radiation mask that like held his face still. We basically burned that and like the Morgan quad, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, he never really, I mean, he was there less frequently, especially when his energy got sucked pretty bad because of the treatment. But yeah, he was around a lot for what was going on with him, and again, he was always positive when he was around, and that kind of continued throughout the summer. He had finished radiation, so he was like kind of given the all clear at the start of summer, and then I think it was early July when he found out that the cancer had spread and he had like start chemo. So he did chemo from July and then through it was like mid to late July and then through camp. And he wasn't around football a lot, but by that time we had actually all moved in together I think it was at the beginning of August or middle of August during camp. And so, I mean, me, Cam, Ted, and Drew Birchmeyer, we were all in a 4-person like apartment style type thing. So we saw him a lot after practice and stuff like that. And then
he stayed in Nashville and was getting his treatment and care.
Yeah. So he got his treatment originally at Ingram Cancer Center, and then he enrolled in a kind of experimental trial down at MD Anderson in Houston. And so he flew down, I want to say late August, he flew down to like it was a T-cell treatment. So they like kind of take your bone marrow and make a bunch of cells, and then they inject it back in you with the thought that that'll kind of go through your body and kill the cancer. And so he flew down and got like that procedure and then flew back and was back in our dorm. And he was there until, I want to say it was mid-September. And then his parents came and got him and brought him home. And that was actually the last time that we saw him, just because his condition from like mid-September to when he passed in November deteriorated pretty quickly. So yeah.
This was in November or the fall of 2018.
Yes, junior year.
Turner passed late November of 18. And wasn't it just a few weeks later, you guys actually were in Houston for the Texas Bowl?
Yes. So the timeline kind of goes, it was Thanksgiving and we played Tennessee. That was the three-peat year. And I did catch my first touchdown pass that game, which was pretty cool. And then I think that game was on a Saturday. And then we kind of got a text on Monday, I think it was, it was Sunday, because it was right after our football banquet, that Turner was getting put on hospice and that we should make arrangements to come and see him. So we're doing that. And we were going to go visit him that next weekend because we were off of football that next weekend. And then unfortunately, he was supposed to make it 2 or 3 weeks, and he passed away 4 days later. So he actually passed away Thursday, the day before we were supposed to go down to Atlanta, which was tough. And then we actually still went down to Atlanta. We waited a day and drove down on Saturday, just kind of like our close friend group, to spend the day with the Cockrells, which was honestly a great day. We just sat there telling stories, no matter how inappropriate they were, and just kind of had a celebration of life. So it was good to still, it felt like we saw him because we went down there and talked to his parents and spent the whole day with them and like their whole extended family. So it really felt like we were part of the family. And then, yes, and then that was November 28th, I think. And then we visited on the 29th. And then we were in the bowl prep for the Texas Bowl. And so we went to Houston on like the 20th, 21st, and then we're there till the 27th. And then, yeah, on Christmas Day, we actually got to go visit MD Anderson Cancer Center, and we met with his surgeon, Dr. Amy Hessel, who was amazing. She's a Florida Gator, unfortunately, but she was wearing an SEC shirt, not a Florida shirt. But yeah, she had nothing but great things. It's the same things we say about Turner. She said when he was there for treatment, all he was positive, and he never made it down for the follow-up procedure. But yeah, for the few hours that she got to spend with him, she knew he was special, which was awesome that she took time out of her day on Christmas Day to come and meet us at the cancer center. So
I know that meant a lot to you guys.
yeah.
But from all of this experience has spurned a phenomenal fundraising and memorializing and honoring of Turner.
Yeah.
And I want to transition, if it's okay with you, Cody, I want to talk about Turner's Heroes. How did it start? I know you're the face of it and you've been running it, and that's what you're doing these days. But I want you to educate folks who may know nothing about the organization. I want you to tell us about it.
Yeah, so I guess that's started at a great place because I got the idea basically while we were walking the halls of MD Anderson Cancer Center. We delivered like a goodie baskets, and we weren't able to actually meet with the patients that they had, the pediatric patients that they had there. But we were able to give basically their nurses like goodie bags to give to the kids. And I said, "Ooh, this is a cool concept. This would be doing something like this would be a great way to honor Turner." So I basically spent over winter break, because we had a little bit off time, I just spent that brainstorming of what can I do and what can we do as a team that would memorialize him and honor him in a way. And so we're like, okay, what did Turner really like? And he loved superheroes, and whether that's like comic books, like the movies, like Marvel, DC, TV shows, anything to do with superheroes. That's what a lot of our debates were, a lot of our arguments were, is like who'd win in this situation and that type of thing. And I mean, even at his funeral, his high school friends, his friends from high school, they talked about how they'd argue about who was better, Iron Man or Spider-Man, all day long. And so, I mean, that's something that was so a part of who he was. I was like, okay, so it has to be superhero themed. And then I kind of went through the process of, okay, what would make kids excited? And we said, oh, I mean, if I was a kid in a hospital, I'd love to design my own superhero cape. And so that's kind of what the idea came through. And I kind of established the idea in February of 2019, and incorporated the organization. And so the general idea was to, one, put on events with student athletes or athletes in general at children's hospitals, and we're gonna get these custom made capes. They have like a Turner's Heroes thing right here, and we're just gonna sit there with these patients and we're gonna design these capes. And so we had like Superman cutouts, like Batman cutouts, stickers, markers, glitter pens, all that stuff. It was like being a kid again. And so we actually had our first event in July of 2019, and it took a while to get all the logistics set up and get our nonprofit status set up. So we launched in early July, and we had our first event in July, and it was a hit. The kids loved it. We had like 75 kids when we were expecting like 30. So we were there for like 2.5 hours designing capes, and I think there's 6 or 7 volunteers, and the Cockrells were there, and like Jason Grooms was there, and it was awesome. And like, that was probably the proudest I've been of the organization. Just because I was like, I don't know if it was a moment of relief because I didn't know if this concept would work or it would actually get the kids excited, and it did. So that was awesome. And then kind of the other two things that we do, our main fundraising branch is, especially at Monroe Carell Jr. Children's Hospital, Vanderbilt, they have discovery grants, and they're $50,000 grants, and they're for kind of up and coming researchers who have like very innovative ideas about, and ours are targeted at pediatric cancer research. So we actually we funded our first discovery grant after the LSU game last year, and we just announced a couple of weeks ago what it was, and it's point of care genetic testing for pediatric cancer patients, and it's basically designing algorithms to decide when a patient needs like DNA testing to decide what the best course of treatment is for them. So whether that's chemo or radiation or whatever it is, there are certain indicators in DNA that tell you what the best path forward is. And it's kind of a new field, especially because genetics are becoming cheaper and more accessible. So Vanderbilt wants to be on the front line of kind of how to use this information in the best way possible for pediatric patients. And we kind of fun, and this kind of leads to the third point, and it's a long explanation, but I'm putting it all out there.
You take as much time as you want.
Yeah. So our third thing is like, and for anyone who tuned into the Vanderbilt-LSU game last year, this is the best example that we've had so far, is doing like in-person events to honor Turner or other pediatric patients. So we dedicated basically the whole game to Turner. We had Coach Mason record a message. We had a bunch of former players record a message that played on the Jumbotron, and we raised $60,000 or $70,000 in 3 days. And it was incredible. And we've done similar events at Alatoona High School, which is where Turner went. It's his alma mater, and Cleveland State. Ben's lacrosse team did an event similar because one of his high school buddies went there to play lacrosse. And yeah, I mean, we're always looking at ways to honor Turner or pediatric cancers in general, because it's just they're so strong to be fighting a disease that horrible that young.
Well, I'll tell you, as I've said earlier, it's quite admirable what you're doing. It's beyond admirable. It's outstanding, particularly and I know you don't want to hear this, in your early 20s and just having graduated college. I can't say enough good things, and I'm not the only one. And I know this may embarrass you a little bit, but I've got to share. First of all, I shared the link to the website in the show notes. So anybody who wants to learn more, who wants to donate, who wants to get involved. And Cody, before I forget, isn't Turner's birthday coming up, and you've got a fundraising specific thing that's going on right now? I want you to tell us a little bit about that.
So we kind of came up with, it's called Turner's Challenge, and we kind of came up with it because for all of our events this year have been canceled so far. So we were planning an event at the spring game and over a weekend with baseball. And both those things obviously did not happen. So we were trying to think of a way to do something virtually that was both fun and safe to do currently, and a way to honor patients in the way that we want and Turner in the way we want. So we came up with this idea of Turner's Challenge, and he wore 82 at Vanderbilt, which is why a lot of what we do is associated with the number 82. And it's a challenge to run or walk 82 kilometers and raise $82 in 82 days. And that 82 days accumulates on September 30th, which is his birthday. So it started July 10th. I think we have like 50 days left. And that's still only a mile a day. So like if people still want to.
Wasn't there one former player who did every bit of it in one time?
So he was one of Turner's friends from high school, and he did run what he told me is he's always been looking to do an ultra marathon for some God knows reason. And so he's like, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So yes, he ran 51 miles in one day. He woke up at 3:30 and he finished around, God, I think it was like noon or 1 and running the whole time and kept up like a pretty good pace, like a 9:30, 10-minute pace.
In Georgia? Does he still live in the South?
Yeah. So
It's summer. Holy smokes.
yeah. So
Wow.
I think that's why he started so early.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Well, guys, I want to share with you, I'm not the only one who thinks that what Cody and his organization, and by the way, starting a nonprofit or trying to run a nonprofit during a pandemic, that's crazy. But I know you're learning on the fly and just learning how to, or pivoting and doing it virtually is fantastic.
Yeah.
But guys, I want to share with you a little bit, a pat on Cody's back, and I know he represents the organization. I know that, but guys, he was the 2020 SEC Brad Davis Community Service Leader of the Year, male recipient. Outstanding. And I watched the Zoom call with Coach Mason and the Cockrells, and they surprised you and brought on the Commissioner Sankey. The list just goes on and on and on, guys. 2019 NFF College Football Hall of Fame William Campbell Trophy nominee, Bickerstaff Pace Award. I mean, the list is this long, guys. And the reason why I bring it up is certainly not to embarrass you, but to highlight you and the work that your organization is doing. I think it's just outstanding.
I appreciate that.
And as I said, I put the link to the organization. And if I go to the website, what am I going to see there, Cody? What do people need to be knowledgeable about?
So you'll get to the website, and right in the front will be like a kind of a logo for Turner's Challenge. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the race page. And if you want to sign up there, you can. But you can see what basically I just spewed 5 minutes worth of words at you. You can read it in written form, and probably shorter than I explained it. We have our like mission statement and values on the first page. You can read a couple blog posts about, I talk further about the Discovery Grant and our first event, and then also our first event in Madison, Wisconsin, which was a hit. So you can do that. There is a donate page if you want to donate that way instead of through Turner's Challenge. It all goes to the same place. And then there's also a gallery, and that kind of has all the pictures of what our events kind of look like. So if you're curious to what these events look like, there's pictures from 2 events at Monroe Carell, and then also our event at Wisconsin that they did. So yeah.
Are you guys in the planning stages for things maybe in the fall or next spring? Hopefully that we come out of the pandemic and you can get back together.
We're working on it. Yeah. So no one really knows high school or collegiate level what the fall is going to look like, what the spring is going to look like. So I think we're all trying to figure out ways that if there is something in person, then that would be great. But how do we engage people virtually, especially if these games are played with no fans in the stadium? How do we do something virtually, or like, do we live stream watch a game with certain people? I don't know. And so that's something that we're definitely thinking about right now. And we're definitely trying to sow seeds for the future this year, just reaching out to different universities. We really would love to, if any other SEC schools want to hold Turner's Heroes games or do Turner's Heroes events at Children's Hospital that they're associated with, that's kind of the partnership we're looking to create right now. And we probably won't be able to do those events this fall, but being able to start planning and start like making these connections is something that we're definitely focusing on. And we're definitely also looking at high school outreach in the Nashville community, and looking at doing similar events that like Alatoona High School did in Georgia, where they kind of had a whole spirit week dedicated to fundraising for Turner's Heroes, and then had a superhero themed game on that Friday. So we're looking to partner with some Nashville area high schools as well.
Cody, you've got a pretty good resource in this group. Several former players are are either current coaches, principals, or teachers at Nashville area. I know OJ Fleming just retired from BGA, Rock Batten. There's a bunch of guys,
Yeah,
maybe good resources in this group. Before
absolutely.
what are you asking people to do from a social media and tagging standpoint? That's right. Edie Johnston Kelsey would be a fantastic. She's watching tonight. She'd be a great person. She's at Brentwood High School. But what are you asking people to do by way of tagging Turner's Heroes, or what do you want them to do from a social media standpoint if they undertake the challenge?
Yeah, for sure. I honestly just tagging us is, I'll definitely see it. I promise. So tagging us, spreading it to their friends. There is like a team feature. So if you want to do it with relatives or with your neighborhood or even with former teammates, you can start a team, and there's a bunch of teams on there, and sharing it with people in your social circle, and tagging us or using I think our hashtags are 82K for Turner and Turner's Challenge 82 are the specific hashtags for Turner's Challenge. And then kind of our generic hashtag is Team Turner, which has kind of always been our hashtag for Turner. We have a bunch of wristbands, like we've always been wearing wristbands pretty much since the day he passed that had Team Turner on them. And
Do you have it on? Can you show? Or is it in
I do not have it on because we all just got tattoos actually like a week ago in honor of him. So this is,
Let's see. What's the symbol?
so it's the Avengers symbol, but instead of an A, it's a T. So
Awesome.
yeah. So I had not taken mine off for almost 2 years, but I had to for this, so I can put them back on in about a month. But for now, they're.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I want to share with you, Kenny Cole is currently an attorney in North Alabama in Huntsville, played linebacker for Vanderbilt in the 70s. And I echo what he had to say about you just now. He says, you're one of the reasons it's an honor to be associated with Vanderbilt. And speaking on behalf of those watching and who will be watching later on, Cody, I applaud your efforts and wish you the very best of luck and continued success.
I really appreciate that. And I mean, I love Vanderbilt. I mean, I had no idea in 2016 what type of decision I'd really be making. And I mean, I could, through the good seasons and the bad seasons, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. So yeah.
Isn't it crazy how life just throws stuff at you and you figure it out?
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Well, guys, this is why I do these conversations on Thursday nights. Cody Markel is certainly an epitome and an example of what it means to be a Commodore, not just on the field, but certainly off the field. And those 4 years prepare you for the next 40. So, Cody, thank you again for your time, and I wish you much success.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
One last thing. Did you know that Turner asked out on a date Dr. Hassel?
I did know that. She told us that.
Mrs. Mark that, and she gives you some love. You're an amazing young man and very blessed that you've been part of Turner's life. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for all your input, your enthusiasm, and contributions. We're going to keep doing these on Thursday nights. Who's next? I can't remember, but I'll post it in the upcoming days. But continue to be safe. I know it's a trying time. I say it every week, even if you don't like wearing a mask for yourself, please do it for fellow mankind. It seems to be working, seems to be helping. You guys, anchor down.
Anchor down.